reinwachsen. Das finde ich eine ganz tolle Idee, reinzuwachsen in etwas, was einem eigentlich zu groß ist. Und ich fand auch wirklich so, als Kind war das ja eigentlich das Tollste, wenn man was erforschen konnte, was rausfinden konnte. Und ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das früher gemacht habt oder vielleicht, so wie ich, wenn keiner guckt, heute noch macht. Mein Bruder und ich fanden das früher ganz, ganz toll, wenn man sich so ein Gummibärchen genommen hat, ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das kennt, und dann so wirklich so festgezogen hat, wie es nur geht, bis zu einem gewissen Punkt, wo es dann eben sonst fast gerissen wäre und dann wieder losgelassen haben. Das Witzige daran war nämlich, dass dieses Gummibärchen einfach wieder zurück quasi in den Ausgangszustand gekommen ist. Und was mein Bruder und ich damals sehr witzig fanden, weil es spielerisch einfach sehr viel Spaß gemacht hat, war im Prinzip das Prinzip der Resilienz. Etwas, was wir damals noch gar nicht abschätzen konnten, dass es heutzutage wahnsinnig wichtig geworden ist. Und das merkt man auch in den Diskussionen. Von Cybersecurity geht es hin zu Cyberresilienz. Und was man dazu alles wissen muss, wie vielleicht auch Dinge, Taktiken aussehen können, um so ein bisschen mehr Gummibärchen-Skills in die Cybersecurity reinzubringen, das wird uns die nächste Speakerin erzählen. Und soweit ich weiß, ist das in Englisch, richtig? Ja, in Englisch. So, very warm welcome to the CDIO of ZF Foxconn Chassis Module, Ilona Simpson. Very warm welcome.
Dankeschön zusammen. Claudia Plattner ist einfach cool, ne? Ob digital oder in Person. Seht's mir bitte nach, mein Deutsch ist so verrostet, dass ich mir einfach nicht traue, hier auf der Bühne zu stehen und das auf Deutsch mal zu versuchen. That means we're going to English. I'm going to use Sarah's digital tool. May I have a show of hands who identifies as a leader in cybersecurity, CISO, head of... Very cool. Who aspires to become one? And who thinks there'll be great conversations here, and you're just here to listen and learn. Very cool. I hope there'll be something for every one of you. When I refer to CISOs in my presentation for the simplicity, otherwise I'll be saying cybersecurity professionals, anyone interested and committed to making a difference. And I hope you'll find, whichever group you consider yourself in, that you'll find something valuable for yourself. And cybersecurity leadership, the paradigm is changing. I am not a CISO. I've never been a CISO. I've committed every sin in cybersecurity you can imagine as a CIO. But this is for Chatham House rules and for conversations afterwards. But what I see the parallel to CIOs is I've known CISOs and cybersecurity professionals as being brilliant technologists, as being people who are able and capable of digesting all the complexity and the regulations that keep dropping on top of each other with overlapping and sometimes different directions for the same organization. How you digest it, how do you simplify it, how do you apply it, how do you lead the organizations to achieve results. But increasingly important is how do you lead the organization? How do you become the champion of digital trust? How do you build the culture of digital resilience, digital robustness? And who can CISOs, who can you learn from? The CIOs. I started in IT because I like tech. I thought SAP was the highest of all things, and look at the functionality. And then came the term digital transformation. Smoke and mirrors, a little similar to zero trust right now. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody really understood back then what it is, but we all kind of saw the movement of these iPhones came on board, and organizations started demanding a different way of engaging with us. And I faced the conversations, IT is too slow, too expensive, and we have no idea what you're up to anyway. Yeah, you're just too detached from the business. And looking at it, what did we need to do to shift it? And what some of us all of us are work in progress. And I still have these occasional conversations. But learn a new language. learn a different language, look at how do we interact with the business, use their terms, their language, create engagement platforms beyond projects. Yeah, beyond those initiatives, what does day-to-day interaction look like? How do you take, to the point of Claudia and Sarah, how do you bring everybody in your boat to achieve things together? And last not least, reframe politics into stakeholder management. And what does success look like to us is how about that seat at the table, and you see collectively increasing number of CIOs, members of executive committees, management boards, reporting to the CEOs. We are then in the position to have different conversations, as opposed to being kind of somewhere in the finance department and seen as a cost center, etc. How about budget? Getting people on your side will help you drive those initiatives that you consider to be very necessary and valuable. And last not least, how about earning more money? How about remuneration? And let me start with that piece of remuneration, spend a few minutes on what's in it for you and how do I see, kind of what have I learned you can do to leverage that to get greater insights in yourself, your organization, and then a number of ingredients that you can pick and choose from. Some of them you'd say absolutely useless, others may give you some food for thought to apply in your daily life. Now, there is a company, executive search firm, there's probably a handful that are globally recognized. Russell Reynolds is one of them. And Russell Reynolds, among others, hires CISOs for big organizations. So if you ever want to become a CISO at Unilever or at Deutsche Bahn or etc., you'll have to deal with them. And they're the ones who are advising either CIOs, like myself, who are hiring CISOs, or CEOs and boards on what a CISO would look like. They came up with a maturity model. CMMI, how many do we have? The maturity model, again, as anyone, it has different levels. It goes from one, which I'd call transactional. I think they use the term partial approach, all the way to 4. And at the level 4, you see the top CISOs. And there are some tasks. What do CISOs do? What do those people do? And as you can see, there's a number of them that's common, that everybody should master. But there's also differentiators in there. What differentiates the top CISOs? It's the end-to-end automation. It's mastering different types of technology. It's about getting insights, leveraging data and analytics, and last not least, it's about shaping the culture. And how do the top leaders lead? Looking at these 3 aspects, what's the nature of their relationships? What's the style of the interaction that they choose? And at what level do they influence? And sure enough, if you move from transactional, if you move from reactional towards proactive, engaging conversations, from dealing with your IT colleagues and within the teams, moving towards the boards, the salary grows as well. So this is the perceived value by the organizations. And again, looking at the characteristics, what are the key characteristics? Strategy, capability, influencing, and collaboration. I cannot stress enough, how important it is to start engaging and to get more of those conversations. Now, that's a side of a CISO. There's always 2 sides in any relationship in an organization too. And there's an aspect of that Russell Reynolds consider relevant is what type of CISO does the organization need? And there's a 2x2 matrix, and again, nothing new to many of us. What's the probability, what's the likelihood of a cybersecurity incident, and what would be the impact? And if the likelihood is low and the impact is not significant, then the operational, the transactional type of CISO, type of cybersecurity leader is absolutely good enough. Now, An interesting part about this 2x2 matrix is who determines how likely and what the impact would be. And it's often a matter of perception. Yeah, so you may say, we are critical infrastructure, we are doing this, this, and that, and these are the attack vectors. If the board sees it differently, then you probably face a situation where, are you in an educational business? Do you first need to get those people on board and get them onto the journey to recognize that? Ask yourself the question, is it something that you're keen to do? Or does it match your capabilities? Does it match your aspirations? Is this the right environment? And I myself have had a few situations, 2 situations where I really left a role I was in, super prestigious organizations, because it did not fit. Yeah, and recognizing that fit and just moving on without having anything else lined up, somewhat adventurous, but facing that question and making an informed decision. I'm not saying anybody should leave their job now, but make it an informed decision and commit to and understand where you stand, as well as what takes you further. And I do have a very dear friend who is a CISO, and if you, when you look at her, there's a mane of hair coming with her, and the laboutons, yeah, and she's absolutely stunning. And she says, I go into the boardrooms wearing the laboutons to explain to show everyone, you can be pretty and you can be smart. Yeah, not everyone's choice. Yeah, but this is make that, if you're making that choice, it's an informed decision, and you stand to it. I myself, cut my hair short. I don't know when I've last wore a skirt, let alone I admire Sarah's heels, but and collect a few of them. But yes, that's my message to you, to start with, to you yourself. Look at where you are at, assess those dimensions, as well as you can actually start creating facts. You don't need to get anywhere, kind of the organizational, take the organization on it, but create fact by have one-to-ones with the leaders in a business. Have one-to-ones and just say, hey, can I pick your brains? Can I share with you? Do you have any questions? So that one-to-one engagement is super, super powerful. One lesson that I had to learn myself, and I'm still learning. I grew up in an environment where you have to be known for what you've done, for what you've accomplished. Talking has no value, yeah. And looking at it, quality matters and matters and matters. And there was one friend and colleague at Energy some years back who said, gee, have you ever heard of the formula? Success equals quality times acceptance. And I had chills going down my spine, because I said, I was focusing on quality and achieving and overachieving, but I've actually wrongly interpreted the kind of acceptance was, to me, politics. Yeah, or you need to talk to people whatsoever. Reframing that into, what have I done for others to understand the value outside of my IT teams? Because we know, everybody who understands what I'm dealing with, they'll know. But the majority of my business doesn't. The majority of my business is driven by something else. So how to engage, how to get that advocacy and self-advocacy. And in my previous company, we had a super cool chief HR officer. And I said to her, Marilyn, she was at Anaplan. Again, this is, please do not quote it anywhere. As she joined Anaplan, it was called Manaplan. Yeah? And in 4 years in the years that she was there, she actually turned it into kind of a fantastic organization that was just becoming gender blind and color blind and whatsoever. And I asked her, Marilyn, what does it take? She served on a number of boards. I said, what does it take to be a successful member of the board? Her answer was, you need commercial understanding. So everything you do, you translate into benefit, risk, cost analysis, and self-advocacy. advocate for yourself. And I think collectively, if I look at myself, if I look at the ones I know in this room, we are humble, yeah? And let's do more of that. The power of alliances and the disadvantages of bad formatting on my side. Looking at how do you bring others, sometimes it's the unusual and alliances that are not very naturally evolving and developing. Marketing. To say I have a love-hate relationship with marketing is probably an understatement, because in any function that you're setting standards, there'll be chief marketing officer and his colleagues. They have a very specific tools. I don't even know that exists, that they paid for by the credit card or in some other way that goes out of standards and out of scope, and actually creates friction, because then we need to pick things up from them. Salesforce was known to be selling to chief marketing officers and to sales of organizations for a long time. They've made that shift now to be engaged more with the IT function. But marketing people are brilliant communicators, and picking their brains, and they're so grateful. Every time I go to a marketing boss, I say, this is the communication I want to do towards the organization. What do you think? You know, will it fly? Can you be my devil's advocate? Can you tear it apart? How would you do it differently? Yeah, looking at people like Sarah, people who master the word, who know how to engage best, get them on board. Procurement. We all face third-party risk is everywhere. How do we get procurement? Finance, if it's about budgets, looking at finance colleagues understand what the portfolio is, and many of them have more insights about the budgetary situation, about what the preferences and priorities are, help navigate with the business case, help navigate with the project. HR is the obvious one, is our partners in crime when it comes to cultural transformation, when it comes to awareness, and of course boards and the CIOs. And I'd like to share with you some insights about boards, because I think if we understand the motivation of people, we can better align to them in our own agendas. This is the Gartner survey. And the Gartner survey hasn't changed that much since, but as they did it, they asked CEOs who are their top 3 executives of choice when it comes to change, when it comes to a major transformation for a major initiative. And a few years back, it was CIOs were number 3. More recently, down to number 7. So what does it tell us? That there are actually other priorities. Digitization and digital has become an expectation for mode of operation, that there may be other forces at play for the CEOs that take the attention of the CIOs. And now when non-tech business is rising fast, carbon footprint, everything that has to do with ESG is a big priority. Talent crisis, if we say, we see it, you see it in the cybersecurity space. Whichever area you look into, there's a talent crisis. Inflation, sustainability, these are the topics that are driving the business. So when we look at the initiatives, when we look at how do we align to them, I'd like to share with you a brilliant example. Deutsche Post DHL. It's a supply chain business. It's letters, it's parcels, it's freight. Deutsche Post DHL remunerate their board members based on the BitSight score. Anybody doesn't know what the BitSight score is? It's a cybersecurity index of an organization that companies like Allianz and others would be using, or similar ones would be using to assess their suppliers. So Deutsche Post DHL board decided that the cybersecurity posture will make them a more trusted partner. And the CISO back then at Deutsche Post DHL have included cybersecurity in the ESG agenda. Again, ESG is top of priorities of the board. Let's make sure that cybersecurity is part of that agenda, and this is annual report from 2 years ago, as the first annual report that they published, where they included it in towards the shareholders. The brand lens. Oxford University and Said Business School have a very strong faculty, kind of economics faculty, but also brand faculty. And the way they view brand is the brand capability and credibility. Capability is something that you build over time, that your organization is known for, is how good what are your strengths, what's your USP. Credibility is how does an organization deal in a crisis, with a crisis? How does an organization treat its customers when things are not going right? And they put a lot of emphasis on how, and I've done research on how brand credibility is fragile, and how a cyber attack, how the way we deal with an incident, with a cyber incident, can damage our business and bring the business almost to the hold. So looking at how addressing the boards is looking at from the brand perspective. And one CEO not so long ago said, when he looks at his organization and at cybersecurity, what considerations does he have in his mind? And it's brand, operations, finance. Yeah. So brand angle is first. What's my reputation in the market? Will I lose customers because they no longer trust me? And how do I rebuild that? There's a benchmarking lens as well. McKinsey. Good old McKinsey's have done a study on digital trust and published a paper. It's a brilliant paper in a McKinsey way. Everything is clear, structured, and broken down. So they've operationalized digital trust, and it consists of what's your data protection policy, what's your AI agenda and cybersecurity policies. And they have found that the champions of digital trust not only outperform their peers in resilience, but also in growth. An example in automotive industry, Inchcape, a big distributor for the Porsche, Volkswagen, and other big OEMs in the world. Inchcape CISO decided, we're doing all the audits for all the OEMs. I want to be the first one. I want to build that digital trust. I want to strengthen that relationship and give them more confidence in our business. Again, coming from a CISO, coming from a cybersecurity function, joining forces with leadership from other areas, driving that agenda. The organizational lens. Whenever you face the need to change, take people on a journey, etc., there's I don't know whether you've ever experienced the inertia of middle management. Yeah, when you stand there and say, "Hey, we're going to do this," and their eyes sparkling in a bigger group, but there are naysayers who either report to you or who you're surrounded with, how to go through that. Again, looking at projects, in particular in the corporate environment, looking at how do I do projects and pick those people. Yeah, we don't need to deliver as an organization. Look at the project organization and the power of that. Making the change irreversible. Again, what's the core business process, business result that you're embedding your change in. Again, Energy, some years back, average employee turnover was 20 plus years. Change is a swear word. Coming from nuclear power, you do not do change. Communication would be going like a parable. Goes up the management, then down from the management. And the company, Peter Therium, the CEO back then, decided, I'm taking the organization on the transformation, on the cultural transformation. I took IT to the product-led model, so different ways of making decisions, saying it's no longer the boss and boss's boss who does it, but we have product owners, and they are the ones. They are the ones on in a driving seat for what's architecture, what's the commercials, what's the entire package of what we do, and drive different conversations with the business. Now, nobody would have ever gone with me on a transformation where say we're doing cultural transformation. But what it became then, we started budgeting in a different way. I'm being cut off. Help CIOs deliver revenue growth, profit, and innovation. Looking at an example of a CEO statement, what matters to them. And last, here we go. For you to take away, grab that coffee with marketing, grab that coffee with someone who rubs on you, who irritates you, and see how can they support your perspective. What are the top stakeholders who you would like to engage? Who would you want to know about all the great stuff that it's not just you, your teams, and everybody who's involved in whatever your agenda is doing. And reflect on what type of leader you are and you want to be, and make informed decision. And I look forward to conversations in the break. Thank you.